To redo round 5 at the 2015 TOC. This was the 4-0 debate between Jackson and Varun. Varun affirmed, Jackson negated. So we're going to first redo the 1AR. We thought that Varun's 1AR was really selling himself short on the line-by-line of the CX checks debate. And it probably cost Varun the round, especially the drop between theoretical education and substantive education, in addition to just the lack of responses on theoretical ground. If you go back and watch the first video, you'll notice Varun only gave himself one argument against theoretical ground, which was the turn that you have more clear theoretical ground because your violations are more clear. Though that is a decent argument, we also want to put out other arguments to make the 2NR harder on the line-by-line of the CX checks debate. So in this 1AR, what we're going to aim to do is 2 minutes on the interp. And our 2 minutes are going to be devoted to really making the line-by-line a mess. And so the hope is that the 2NR will either be deterred from going for the line-by-line, or if it goes for the line-by-line, it'll be a very messy debate that the judge will have trouble resolving. And that way we can just shift the debate off onto either outweighing via the new theory shell that Varun read, or the cap K. Cool. So let's listen to this 1AR.
The order will, so on the shell, I'll start on the argument on the fairness voter. There's no trade-off between substantive and theoretical education.
Okay.
Yeah. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Obviously, trade-off between substantive and theoretical education. Once you redo, we have less substance. 2 reasons why substantive education outweighs. First, theoretical education really has no value except within the base space itself. Second, it's a question of uniqueness. We can always gain theoretical education from other 20s. However, this last one, we can get substantive education on this topic on the intro. Counterinterpretation, I can reserve the right to clarify only the 2 arguments I say in the AC. So you have to shift the argument and theory ground argument because I'm only shifting arguments on two arguments, which I'm not denying that much theory ground, not shifting that much advocacy. Also, have to shift shifting theory ground is better on this instance because of time skew. I'm only shifting the 2 arguments that have bidirectional interpretation. Regardless, you will be able to run theory. Regardless, you will be able to run theory. Preventing you from doing that solves time skew because it values the entirety of one, and that solves the time skew argument. I'm meeting your interpretation because I meet the first 2 planks. None of your offense links to the third plank. I actually violate. Second is a counterinterpretation because I already established an interpretation. That when ACF conceded education always fairness, which means that if I'm accessing a link to education in time, I am sufficient way on the advocate. I'm only shifting 2 arguments, which means that not much of the advocate on theoretical ground. Prove the argument one turn. I allow for more substantive education because when I when check and CS, I can comply to your interpretation and resume the debate on substance. Second turn, I give you opportunity to confirm the violation into better theoretical ground on the subpoints on the 8.1. Yeah, better cross-examination to pinpoint abuse. So it turns your value of CS argument because if people are being squirrely, it forces you to be better at CS on the abuse point. Turn without cross-examination, abuse would be more innocuous because there's no recourse to change the argument, which incentivizes people to not label the arguments abusive on the abuse point. And my interpretation of cross-examination is reading your interpretation asking the other debater to conform with the question and interpretation on abuse point. This is not unique because preparing for theory interpretation happens regardless of whether I read cross-examination on value of CX1. One is not unique because people spend time clarifying the status quo. Second, it's only a tiny strength of link. Only a tiny strength of link because people are so going to practice the actual value of CS after they clarify.
How long is that?
Shows you.
Okay. So the first thing is, I think that the other argument Varun made a crucial drop on was on drop the argument versus drop the debater. Jackson makes an argument that spikes are functionally drop the debater because they lock the neg out of recovering from the round post onwards.
Oh wait, I thought the argument was that you should counter that you need to wait. Let me think of the
argument. So the argument was this is how it worked in the round. The 2NR extended that argument to get rid of Varun's claims that it's an OCI.
Right, yeah.
Because his point was that even if it's an OCI, this particular OCI is a voting issue.
Uh-huh.
Any interps or counter-interps talking about spikes are reasons to vote.
Oh, right, yeah.
And his warrants were that otherwise there's a huge incentive for the AF to create a wall of spikes, and the negative is always just fighting to be able to read theory, not even just to win on theory.
Sure, uh-huh. That makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So that's, I think, the first key drop. I think the second thing is this is a really big learning lesson, Kirk,
Uh-huh.
about how you can respond to a subpoint and parallel turn it, but that doesn't mean you responded to the subpoint, right? Like your argument on the A point of theoretical ground was
Right.
turn this increases value of CX because in a world where CX checks, you're forced to pinpoint the theoretical abuse better, right? But what you're doing
right.
in that process is conceding the link that there is sidestepping. You're saying, yeah, look, there is sidestepping, but that's a good thing because that forces you to like really pinpoint the abuse, right? And so this is a learning lesson both from the perspective of responding to a theoretical argument and from the perspective of defending it. If somebody turns your ground standard and their turn is this kills depth or breadth, like let's say you say quantity of ground, right? And they say this kills depth.
Sure.
What they're doing in that process is implicitly conceding the ground standard.
Right.
Right? So that's important for you to recognize because a lot of debaters don't get that. They think if I put ink on the argument is responded to. And that's not the case. The argument is only responded to if you're either putting impact mitigation, link mitigation, or turning the link your way.
Right. Right. Yeah. Now I understand that. Right.
What you're doing is you're constructing a parallel link and explaining why it turns it. Your parallel link in this case is the value of CX. Right? This is what people refer to when they talk about a parallel turn.
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So it's important for you to recognize that the 2NR will kill you on the sidestepping question.
Sure, yeah.
Right? All it has to do is sort through your two arguments on theoretical ground that are on the overview, which is one, you can resume the debate on substance, and two, that there's better theoretical ground because more clear violations.
Do you think that judge will give me a leeway on the argument? Because I make the argument, like when I'm reading the counter interpretation, I solve the theory ground because I'm only denying theory ground on two arguments. Jackson would presumably extend that you can shift out nibs or like nibs or like a prioris, but my argument...
I think the way you need to explain it is that sidestepping is an issue in normal CX checks arguments, but it's not an issue in mine.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you should point out that this severely mitigates his link, which means that the net benefits to the counterinterpretation about avoiding bidirectional one-end theory are huge. Additionally, though, the way that Jackson and I wrote this shell was to account for this Wang argument, right? So there also needs to be an explicit argument then in the 1AR itself that responds to the argument in advocacy shift, which is that you have no excuse. You had 5 months to frontline and prepare for your version of a fair debate. Like you've had so long to commit to an interp on what you think should be the specification, and you should be ready to go on it.
Sure, yeah.
Right? And so what that does is it directly challenges the assumption behind the Wang argument we just discussed. Because the assumption behind the Wang argument is that the 1AC is always undercut in its value since the 1N can just uplayer with bidirectional interps. And our point is that, yes, the 1N can always uplayer with bidirectional T interps, but the point is the AF should stick to its guns and commit to a T interp and then defend it.
Okay.
So the fact that I can uplayer you via T is not that significant.
Okay.
Because you also have pre-round prep.
Sure. How will I be able to catch like preempts like that when it's like in the standard?
You just need to listen closely.
Okay.
Like this is something that you need to practice and you need to make it a point. Right? When you're listening to theory shells, every sentence is important. You need to ask yourself when an argument is made in a theory shell, does that directly link into the standard or to the voter? If not, what is its function?
Okay, sure.
Now, obviously, I have some sympathy for you here because theory shells are read so fast that oftentimes it's hard to catch, right? But I think that the big advantage I have over you in this regards is I've had 6 more years of practice than you have had.
Right.
And so it really is just an issue of practice, right? For me, alarm bells go off in my mind every time I hear an argument in a theory shell that doesn't link explicitly to the standard as a warrant to the standard or link the standard into the voter.
Right.
I'm like, something is up here.
Right.
Right? This argument has some dual function or some other function.
Sure, yeah. Wait, for the for the preempt the average shift, how would it respond to my time skew argument? The argument that sure, even like if he extends the argument to cross apply, I'll be like sure, even if I'm able to prepare, that doesn't mean that you preserve the value of the London, which is what my time skew is talking about. That sure, I can prepare for the theory interp, but you still kill the value of my
Right. So you should talk about that. You should be like, look, like best case scenario, this just means I know that you're going to uplayer me.
sure,
Right, that I have front lines and that I can execute that debate. But A, T is not a voting issue for me. The AF has the burden to be topical, and you deny me the RVI, so I don't get any offense off this. So I always get uplayered, and the 1AR has to fight through 2 layers in order to access its case offense at minimum, right? And B, it denies the original point, which is that there is no reason we should have these stupid bidirectional debates, right? I'm willing to shift what I think the fair interp of the round is. Because I want to have a debate with you. That's not theory. Now, that second argument, the B point, sort of relies on reasonability.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's making a reasonability claim. So it's important for you to A, identify that your argument relies on reasonability, and B, give yourself outs that are not reasonability, especially if you're dropping the reasonability competing interps debate.
Sure, yeah.
Cool? Okay. So now let's redo the 2NR.
Sure. Yeah.
So in this 2NR, we thought Jackson's speech was pretty close to perfect. It was very efficient, very fast, got through everything that it needed to get through. We thought the one place Jackson sort of left himself short, though, was a more clear explanation of the standards debate on the CX check shell. And winning a clear link into theoretical ground. And so our hope is to match the efficiency and the speed of this 2NR, which were really just above excellent. They were just fantastic. And to match that speed and efficiency, but also to allocate time a little bit better on the standard of theoretical ground and value of CX.
So the order will be Varun's 1AR shell, and then the shell itself, then my shell.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Counterinterpretation. The debaters may indict potential offense only for cross-check checks. First, I'm mitigating a significant part of your offense because I only get mitigated potential offense for one shell. Second, the cross checks is relying on potential abuse because it's not the actual shift that I have in the process that's abusive. It's a potential shift, and also I have to waste cross-examination check time to check. I'm meaning your interpretation because cross-examination proves the abuse. Otherwise, without process, you would have violated municipality T, but you shifted out of that onto qualitative ground. One shell you destroy qualitative ground because I have no conception of what your advocacy is until after cross-examination. No, 200 shells aren't sufficient because judges are really advising against one 200 shells and second turn. Competing interpretation means that we care about potential abuse. So this is a framing issue. And 3, if there's no shift, you can read that as a counter interpretation. That's all the abuse. 4, there's no abuse. Not shifting later speech. It's a question of shifting in cross-examination as overview to all your topic education arguments. You have conceded weighing under the fairness voters that topic education the same as subject education. That there's no trade-off between the two, and we get equal education coming out of both, which is that there's no net benefit under education for in your world. On topic education specifically, one turn you destroy topic ed because you allow constantly shifting my arguments, which precludes my ability to engage with your own substance. And second, abuse is only marginal. You don't gain that much on topic education. You say you solve the abuse. It's a question of link differential. You can weigh the link differential on the straight link on the shells. Incorrect. The first question you have to ask yourself is the shell and is the shell offensive? There are 3 reasons why. First is reciprocity and your interpretation. Only the affirmative gets offensive theory, and negative will never get offensive theory because there's always going to be an implicit interpretation and assumption that AC. This destroys the reciprocity. Reciprocity fairness because shares equal with fairness equal access to balance. Second, you kill recourse because no incentive. You kill the incentive to read theory against the 1AC theory spikes because I'll never be able to win on the issue. It's not strategic for
you have conceded the argument, classify the argument against on the drop debate that even if you win, it's offensive counter-interpret. The offensive counter-interpretation in this instance is the reason to drop the debate because it encourages you to read more and more abusive theories, right? So no check on abuse. And 3, I'm more consistent with the definition of interpretation. Interpretation is prohibited, which is exactly what my interpretation does. I prohibit you from reading across the chest. However, there's no interpretation that's actually establishing the 1AC. Your IME doesn't make sense at all because my interpretation specifically says that you can't read the spike that you read in the 1AC, which means that you'll never be able to read my interpretation. Then your next argument is that I can only check on 2 arguments. 1, your counter interpretation isn't that. You have conceded complete interpretation, which means it's a question of who sets the best score for the debate. Your counter interpretation allows you to shift all the different arguments within that entire my offense still links that can still present abuse because you can still shift on those 2 arguments. Extend the theoretical ground arguments. I've missed many sub points. Ace point allows sidestepping abuse. So for example, reading nib and a priori, you can simply say in cross-examinations like I'm not reading those arguments to get out of abuse. That encourages people to run more and more abusive arguments with the mindset that they can get out in cross-examination abuse. And once that encourages abuse to be more innocuous, that's the worst form of abuse because people will never be able to pinpoint where exactly abuse is. You have only one response to that. Encourage clear violation. One clear violation doesn't make sense in this instance because there's only 2 arguments, and that's bidirectional interps. And second, good interpretation I'll solve because there's never way they'll be able to make an IME argument at 3. I outweigh in terms of strengthening the theoretical ground. Under my world, there's still a possibility I might not get a clear violation. However, there's also always a possibility that I'll be able to shift your advocacy in cross-examination. That's the worst form of abuse. And theoretical ground always are your arguments. Ace points lack of recourse. If I don't have theoretical ground, that means that your arguments will become more and more abusive. There's still recourse for all your standard abuse points. Which are meta theory because we lose my ability to actually engage on the theory ground. So the argument why meta theory comes first. I and trying to link. You only make one argument against theory ground plus conceding on myself. Almost 100% strength of link argument. Extend the value of cross-examination. You kill the value of cross-examination because you force people to keep clarifying the theory, interpretation, and cross-examination. But actually asking a legitimate question. Your first argument's not unique. Obviously unique. Without cross-examination, people will ask better question. Your next argument's how to defend whatever you want. That simply proves abuse because I have to check every theory interpretation to see what exactly you want. The value of CS always talk about education because it's more portable skill. We will be able to teach us a skill to how to ask questions in the real world. However, the topic of education we learn about living wage probably isn't applicable in the real world.
How long is that?
440.
440. Okay. I think that the so I think that the difference between this speech and the speech Jackson gave was Jackson also got to do some weighing for why theoretical ground's the most important standard, and also got to do weighing between why his shell outweighed the meta theory shell.
Oh, I thought I did that. Why theoretical ground outweighs.
I got some weighing for why theoretical ground outweighs, but I didn't get weighing for why the shell proper outweighs his. So something like AF abuse outweighs neg abuse. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Similar to the arguments you're making in the 2NR in the debate on 2014 TOC quarters, where you're making arguments that AF abuse outweighs neg abuse because AF abuse came first, necessitating me to be abusive in return.
Sure.
Arguments like that. I think other than that, you got through it just fine. I think the other argument you should make on theoretical ground is you should point out that Varun's turn affects quality of theoretical ground. Like he's saying you have better quality theoretical ground. And all your arguments, A, interact with quality quite well because they indicate that the AF will always try to shift out of the best quality theoretical ground that the neg has. But B, also talk about quantity of theory ground.
Oh, okay.
Right? Then if you do quantity-quality weighing, it's definitely a clear win for you on theoretical ground.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I actually think the better order for this speech is starting on theoretical ground, killing him on the theoretical ground debate, then going up to the interp, winning that there is no I meet, then winning that it's an offensive interp, and then weighing the shell against the counter shell, including the theoretical ground, not counter shell, rather, against the new shell that the 1AR read, explaining the theoretical ground substantive education argument, and then blitzing him on the new shell.
Sure.
Right? And that way you get to the new shell, and it doesn't really matter if you like have an argument or two less on the new shell.
Because you already made weighing arguments.
Yeah, you have a lot of weighing in the CX checks debate that is going for you. Make sense?
Yeah.
I also want to point out to you that we've now seen several rounds where the 2AR collapsed into beating out of a nib and trying to collapse the debate to substance. Right? We watched Rom try to beat both plan flaw and meta theory to get the debate back to substance because to negative conceded substance. And we watched Varun try to beat both the cap K and the CX checks debate in order to get the debate back to substance. In both rounds, the AF lost. Right? And it's not because they were bad debaters. Varun and Rom were, by every standard, excellent debaters. Right? And it's just because that strategic decision is not necessarily the best place you want to be in the 2AR, where you have to win 2 layers. And if you are in the position where you have to win 2 layers, you have to make sure that the 1AR set yourself up well for that. Right? So Rom's 1AR set himself up well for winning both layers, right? He just misallocated time in the 2AR. So Rom's job was a lot easier than Varun's because Varun didn't set himself up well to do both in the 2AR because he didn't give himself enough ammunition on the theoretical ground debate. So if you're giving a 1AR and you potentially see that your 2AR is going to willingly walk into a nib, your 1AR needs to make sure it's fantastic on the line by line.
Sure.
Because that lets the 2AR exploit 2NR drops and 2NR under coverage. Make sense? Similarly, the one thing you should notice about both those 2NRs that the 2AR walked into a nib with was that they were fast and technical.
Right, yeah.
Right? Chris gave a pretty technical and fast speech, and Jackson gave an even faster and more technical speech.
Sure.
And so what that does is it spreads the 2AR thin.
Yeah.
Just because you have 6 minutes in the 2NR does not mean you can afford to go slow. This is a trap that a lot of debaters fall into. That they'll spend a solid 30 to 60 seconds of the 2NR talking slowly and like telling a story, right? Tell a story, but do it fast.
Right, okay.
There's no point of willingly sacrificing your advantage.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. Do you have any questions about this?
No, I'm good.